Well, Cornerstone, Pastor Chris here. I am thrilled to be able to talk to you for just a few minutes today with two of my favorite people who oversee ministries in our church, Micah Blue, student pastor, and Dusty Schultz, children's pastor. And they're going to be sharing with you today a little bit about summer camp. Summer camp's a big deal around here. We love summer camp. We love helping our students and kids all go to camp. Why don't you guys say hi and tell us a little bit about what camps you're going to be working with and overseeing this summer?
Yeah, my team is overseeing the 2nd and 3rd grade camp. That's going to be June 19th through 20th. And then our 4th and 5th grade camp will be June 28th through July 1st.
And then on July 6th through the 10th, we are going with our high school students out to Rushville, Illinois for high school camp. Going to be incredible. And wrapping up the summer as far as camps go at Oil Belt with our middle school students from July 19th through July 24th.
Awesome. And if for some reason somebody missed all those dates, obviously they're all posted on the website. You can get all that information, register. What we want to do is just take a minute and let you guys share some details about camp, because I remember being a 3rd or 4th grader and having a lot of unknowns about what church camp was really like and what that was going to be in my life. And now on the other side of that, I look back and part of my testimony is how much God used camp to transform my heart and really instill a love for his word. I was even baptized at camp and then served at camp for years and years and years, even as a teenager, and then much longer than that. And I love camp, and our church loves camp, and we value what God does through that. So why don't you tell us maybe one or two things that you feel like are the greatest values? Why should somebody send their kid away, overnight, multiple overnights, an hour or two away? Why should someone do that? Dusty, why should somebody send their kid to camp this summer?
Yeah, at the baseline, camp is this opportunity for kids to be able to get out of situations that they're used to and normalize, because what happens is our spiritual life can become so stagnant. As adults, we know this. That happens to us too. And they get to get away and really, in my experience, seeing kids be able to apply what they've been hearing about at church, hearing about at home, but actually apply it in a situation that is away from those things and really be able to, it goes from something learned to something known. And we look at the stats. Kids have 8 hours a day on screen time. That's the lower end. And whenever I see kids be able to unplug and really adapt and change based on what the Bible is telling them, it's so exciting and so exhilarating to see.
Yeah. That's so encouraging. Micah, you have any thoughts on that?
Yeah, I was just going to add one thing that I really wish families and parents could understand more is that weekly church attendance being here is so important. It's awesome. But if you think about it, if you learn, hey, you should be patient on Sunday morning, and then you're not back in the room again till the next Sunday morning learning that, you go, oh, there's a lot of other voices in between all that, right? You got schools, coaches, you got home, stress, whatever it might be. But at camp, what's so cool is you're going, hey, I'm in this place for an extended period of time, right? Whether it's just a couple days or it's that full week, depending on what age appropriate it is. You have a chance to be instilled again and again, right? From the time you wake up to the time you go to sleep. We're having a lot of fun, but we're being really intentional about how we learn to obey Jesus in practical ways at all of those levels.
Yeah. Such good information and just inspiration to help us with what we're talking about. It reminds me of the military idea of boot camp, and you might go, if you're a National Guardsman or something, you might go once a month and do your guard time. Or if you're in the military, you have certain touch points. But man, everybody talks about boot camp as when they kind of it really got instilled in them to become a soldier. It's the daily repetition, even muscle memory. Well, we're not doing calisthenics all day long. We're not running lots of miles and carrying, giant packs, but we are instilling God's word in a number of different ways in age appropriate areas and timelines all across the summer. And we want our kids and our kids' friends and their cousins and their neighbors to get to experience that. So what would be, Dusty, maybe talk a little bit about what the various camps that we're hosting, what is our church's investment there? Tell us a little about Oil Belt and what sorts of things will kids get to experience if they go to an elementary camp this summer?
Yeah, so both of our elementary camps are happening over at Oil Belt Christian Service Camp. And what happens with our church is we actually provide over half of the volunteers because Kyla and I are running the camp. We're getting the curriculum all set up. So that team, as well as there's a state level level verification, and there's our like, hey, make sure you're even safer, because that awesome experience that we're talking about only happens whenever we won't make sure things are safe, people are background checked, to make sure that no one's coming to those camps. We have all those details that we focus on in the beginning so that we step into the important like heart stuff. And every year, what my camp has done in the second and third, even in the fourth and fifth, is like, how do we teach kids what it means to apply the Bible to their everyday life? And we walk through what baptism is, we walk through what it means to tell people about Jesus, we walk through what it means to serve. And I just thinking about last year, to so many kids realizing for the first time like their ability to pour into their church in just like silly ways, like Mike was talking about, being able to get away from things and ask these questions about Travis, how should I be applying this like idea of generosity? I make no money. And Travis being able to like help those kids talk about, how do you give your time, how do you give your energy, how do you give your effort, and just seeing kids for the first time, a lot of times, especially for the younger ages, apply that they can be a Christian, they can live like Jesus even at their age. And that's just one of the coolest things that I get to see at my camp, especially.
That's so awesome. And when you're saying second, third, fourth, and fifth, you're talking about the grade they're going to be going into in the fall.
Yeah, it's good.
So they'll be looking for a week of camp for the grade they're heading into. And a lot of times, for especially those kids that are in the elementary ages, they might have done a sleepover somewhere, or they might have stayed at grandma's. But for most of them, camp becomes one of the first times that they are leaving home, for some of them multiple nights. They're away from their mom and dad. They're away from their siblings. They're having, that's actually another growth area for them. And talk a little bit about just what that can be for a kid, like some of the value of even the going away, and even a little bit of the separation from their norm, even their family in some ways can be a value.
Yeah, so I mean, we see kids with a lot of different, whether it's like physical needs that happen, or even like emotional, like calling from home or homesickness and things that happens, especially at our younger ages, as they learn what it means to like be able to be away from mom and dad for a night. And what we typically do for that is we have, of course, the ability to call home for the kiddo. We have the Dean phone, we have my phone. All parents will have my number and email, just in case anything happens. We do have kids where from time to time they need to call home to make sure everything's okay, or mom and dad want to check in on them too. So it's a cool opportunity, and it happens. And that's like you said, it's a growth point, and we're happy to like partner with parents as they, send their kids away for the first time.
Well, but part of what I remember thinking back, even as a parent, is there's going to come a point where the kid's going to go somewhere and they're going to be without mom or dad, and they're going to be with other people, with trusted leaders. And I think back on going, the first place I want to send my kid is actually to church camp. It's a place where I know that the thing that they're doing is valuable. The people that they're surrounded by are trusted. And the overall experience is going to be one that I would love for my kid to have. So sometimes for parents, it's the decision to go, hey, we want to do this. We want to value this. We know our kid will have fun. We want to encourage them to be a part of something. The same thing is true with middle school and high school students, maybe a little bit less so as they're getting a little bit older. But what would you say are some of the things happening? We're going to a new camp. Actually, we're hosting our own camp. Why don't you talk a little bit about Crossings Camp and just what some of the values are for our middle school and high school students?
Definitely. So our middle schoolers will also be at Oil Belt, which is such a cool continuity thing for us right now, that we have kids who are able to kind of go grade to grade and be someplace familiar. But yeah, at high school specifically this year, we are putting on our own camp. First time that's going to be something I'm a part of. And we are so excited as a team to be able to do that. And the reason being is that we know our students, we know the kids that they're going to be inviting to camp, whatever it might be, and we say, hey, how do we cater this to them to say, hey, very specifically, the things you'll learn, the things you'll do are going to be applicable to what your life is right now. And so out in Rushville, as we get to rent out the camp, and we're going to bring in so many students already right now, we have more high schoolers signed up for camp than we have ever taken, which is super exciting. And we have room for more. And so we believe, and we are praying diligently that God is going to send more and more people to this week at camp, because what we'll do is they're going to hear intentionally from different speakers every night. They're going to have chances to be in classes learning about God's word every day. We're going to have incredible tournaments that they'll compete in. Our nighttime activities are absurd. If you saw our Sam's Club and Amazon orders for these supplies, you'd be like, what in the world could they possibly be doing? We are planning like the most exciting, most incredible, ridiculous, goofy, fun moments for them to have throughout this week. And it'll be be a week that is unforgettable. I mean, you shared that, but you talk about moments and landmark times where you said, wow, this is the moment that things changed for me, or I turned the corner and I took this seriously. It's camp. I've shared it before, but the men who stood up next to me in my own wedding were guys who I was in the dorms with at church camp. And so we're super pumped about that. It's going to be a crazy cool week that is going to look different than it has before in all of the best ways. We believe that the best is yet to come in that. And so one of the things I'm excited about is our theme for both our middle school and high school weeks are going to be together working off the same passage from Colossians chapter 3, which says, set your minds on things above. And so our theme is before anything else. And what a good message to go, hey, before sports, before the success I'm seeking, before the validation I need from my peers, before whatever relationship it could be, I know Jesus needs to be at the top of that. And so everything that we do is going to reinforce that. And it is going to be a great week. All the same things Dusty shared, right? Safety first, making sure that the people who are there are the people who are walking with them in discipleship relationships all throughout the year. Our background checked adults are going to be who's going to be able to be our faculty and staff at both of these weeks of camp to give parents the highest amount of trust that they can have as they send their kids away.
Yeah, it's so good. And I just keep thinking about stories. You know, as you're talking about it, I'm thinking about stories from camp and how the reality that you guys have continued to address that I think is so critical for our parents and grandparents to understand is that when you get a kid out of their regular setting for a couple, 3 days, and it increases toward the better part of a week, especially age appropriately, the barriers start to come down and the Holy Spirit really gets a hold of their heart in a different way. And this is not a perfect formula. Like, it's not like every single week of camp is the epitome of, you know, the top of the mountain, but there are many times where the atmosphere is there, right? If the kid's heart is open, and sometimes it is them coming to a realization about faith they've never seen, or developing friendships they've never had, or learning a passion for God's word that they've never developed, or understanding worship in a unique way by being around trees and bugs and like things that we don't necessarily always attribute to that. But the atmosphere that we're able to create really opens our hearts to what God might share. And I just think back on I know this is true in your life, I think probably in yours too, Dusty, and certainly my life, my challenge and call even to serve in ministry is tethered to some of those weeks in the summer where I got away and that God got a hold of my heart in a powerful way. Mm-hmm. And I think you guys both are nodding your heads like that's a part of our story. So that's one of the reasons we value camp so much. Can you think of any other reasons if somebody says, look, you know, we got a lot of stuff going on this summer with the vacations and the other ball camps and cheer camp and dance camps and, you know, all the different things kids are into and, you know, getting away and spending the money and all the things. That's a lot. Like, what would be any other values or reasons why you would encourage folks to go, hey, put this at the front of the list? Like, get your kids signed up for camp because these are high values. What would you encourage folks with that?
I'll jump in here because I got two that come to mind really quickly. One is relationships, right? We are all just a combination of who we spend the most time with. And so if you are looking at prioritizing what that looks like in your student's life, in your kid's life, and say, hey, oh, wow, we really should have the positive influences. Camp is an environment that is full of positive influences. Yes, it's chaotic. And no, I can't guarantee that every kid there is going to just be inspiring your child to be the future leader of America. But what I can tell you is that the environment that we're shaping and crafting at all of these weeks is one that is going to help kids build relationships that matter with adults who care about them, but also with peers who are focused on the same thing. So that's a really general thing to go, hey, as parents, we care about who our kids are being shaped into. And so these environments are going to allow for relationships to be cultivated that really will put your kid in a great spot. I firmly believe that. The second thing is I talk to parents all the time, and it's, wow, my kids are just on their screens too much. How do I get the phone out of their hands? Why do they get the controller down? Whatever it might be. And we take really intentional effort at both of our student camps specifically to eliminate that. And so at the very baseline, it will be awesome for your kid to spend a week off of Instagram and YouTube and Minecraft and whatever it might be in a way that I become the bad guy to make that happen
Yeah.
and not
Yeah.
you. And we see crazy cool things happen when kids are distraction free, and that is the case.
Well, in that way, I think what you just touched on that I think is important for us to all recognize is like, this is actually an us thing. This is a partnership with the family. This is not like, please come to our thing because we want to do a thing. This is like an effort for our church to go, we want to partner with families for the benefit and health of their kids and ultimately the benefit and health of their family. So this is an us thing, right? We're helping go. It's okay that, you know, somebody that's much younger and much cooler than me can be the bad guy for my kid.
Is that person in the room with us? I
Yeah,
don't
both
know if
of
I'm
you
good.
actually are excelling in those areas. But like can be the bad guy with things, but also in a lot of ways, most of the ways, a really good guy, role models and examples to look up to as some of the things that you shared. Anything come to mind that you wanted to share about like why should somebody prioritize getting their kid or kids to camp this summer?
Yeah, I mean, I've shared this before. I have a stat one and I have a personal one. And then the stat one I find is really cool. Like you look at studies like this, and the numbers are usually about the same, but it shows that 54% of, or 56% of kids who are Christian kids who raise in Christian families and go to church, 54% of those kids will be able to like carry their faith into adulthood or 6 years later from whenever their parents stop mentoring them. But then we go into kids who are at camp. One time at camp, that kid's retention from those 6 year window goes up to 80%. And that's a 24. And stats aren't everything, but if you're me and looking like, how in the world do I make an impact and make a difference? I try to go where the stats kind of point. Like this is like
Absolutely.
an easy way. So that's an easy one, the stat one. But also personally, like I got to know Jesus for the first time. I don't really go to church very much. I had a friend invite me to a high school camp as a freshman in a high school. It was a winter thing actually even. And that was where I met Jesus for the first time. So I could throw all the stats at you. And I know that Chris mentioned some of those in one of his more recent notes, but personally, I think camp is just crucial. It was crucial to my faith. It was crucial to why I'm here and why I'm in ministry, as you shared. I would just hate for a kid to miss that. I would hate for a kid like me who came from, didn't come from a faith background to miss an opportunity to love Jesus and maybe even serve in his kingdom.
It's awesome that you shared even the heart part, but the stat, I mean, if I went into a store and everything was like 24% off, you get my attention, right? So like 24% growth of the potential retention of faith from just going, hey, we're going to prioritize summer camp instead of going, another week in front of the PlayStation at home. Like, yes, let's do that. So real quick, I wanted to just share, I mean, we've mentioned and alluded to kind of our own backgrounds on this. And if I can just kind of like ping pong for a second, you come from a background where camp and church became a major part of your faith development that wasn't necessarily always cultivated directly in your home. And other people, and we're talking about youth leaders and children's ministry leaders and camp leaders, poured into your life because you were allowed to and put in a position as a kid that somebody else could speak into your life. And don't we need other voices? I mean, you could go through the names of people, just all the people that spoke life into your life. They spoke God into your life in a season where you didn't always have that father figure there. Do you want to say anything else about that?
Yeah, I mean, like Ben, Eric, like you have these people who have like poured into me deeply, and I don't remember every youth group. I maybe remember like 2 or 3 youth groups. No offense to what we do on Wednesday nights, it's crucial to my steps, but I can remember every single summer camp of my high school year and the things that I saw and the people that I met and the seasons that I was as I decided to step into ministry finally in my last one.
Yeah. So. And Micah, your story's a little bit different. Growing up in a family that was heavily involved in the church, but I think you could agree, and you're certainly living this out in the way you lead. It's important. It takes a village, as they've said, people have said for a year, like other voices, especially in adolescent years, outside of your parents that are reinforcing some of those values are so critical.
Oh, definitely. And that week of camp, my parents did an incredible job of guiding me towards Jesus and in discipleship all throughout my life. But that week of summer camp, I remember I was a freshman in high school. And I made a decision to say, hey, I'm going to serve the church for the rest of my life. And from that week, every choice I made about my future was defined by that decision that I made that day. It was a random night in Michigan. But to this day, it's like, wow, my ministry, the life that I am at right now is based on saying yes to Jesus at that time. Crazy cool.
Well, and I can tell very similar stories. You know, somebody spoke a very simple sentence into my life that God used to solidify something, and it was at camp. Well, let's just talk for just a second about what people need to do. If they're hearing all this and they got this far in this video, then they're like, maybe we should consider camp. What would you encourage people to do next? What would be a next step for folks?
I mean, go to onecornerstone.org/camp. You'll get all of my information, all of Micah's information for all the camps that we're doing through elementary through high school. And the registration links are there. I know families sometimes need financial aid. There's scholarship at the very bottom that you can apply for. Go to the website. That's probably the most useful thing you could do.
Yep. And I'll say this, Dusty's a lot busier than me on a Sunday, so find me. Shoot me an email, find me in the lobby, and ask me all the questions that you would like to about camp. We're not afraid of any of those questions. We want to give you the most clarity and comfort to partner with your families. So please just bug the heck out of me and Chandler about what our students are doing at camp.
And so even in person at church,
for sure.
Well, that's awesome. And obviously there's the digital means and personal means. Hopefully what you've heard is that we want to encourage you, please hear our hearts that we are desiring for your kid to grow, and camp is such a major way we can do that. This is the season to sign up. We're looking forward to it. God bless you. Have an awesome day.